This week in South Florida, Republicans, Democrats, and the president try again to find common ground on health care reform. Did this summit make a difference or only sharpen the partisan divide? We'll ask Senator George LeMieux of Florida. We'll also ask him about stopping Iran from developing nuclear weapons, which would threaten the existence of Israel and change the balance of power in the Middle East. And what about Marco Rubio's use of his credit card? George LeMieux was appointed by Charlie Crist, but his remarks may surprise you. Plus, another rocky week for the Jackson health system. There's a new audit out, and it's not pretty. But Jackson's executives and union leaders are now trying to work together. We'll have a report. Stories people are talking about this week in South Florida. Good morning. Here is a paradox for you. Almost everyone hates Congress. Approval ratings for Congress are now at their lowest level in 30 years. On the other hand, people like their member of Congress, their representative, their senator. People generally like George LeMieux, a Broward County attorney appointed to the U.S. Senate 6 months ago by Governor Charlie Crist. LeMieux was Crist's chief of staff and ran his last successful campaign. So this Senate appointment is something of a political reward for LeMieux, although it struck others as cronyism. Nevertheless, George LeMieux has dug in, done his homework, and by all accounts is doing a good job in Washington for the people of Florida. Late this week, I talked with LeMieux by satellite from the Capitol. Senator, good morning. Good to speak with you again.
Michael, always good to be with you.
Senator, let's talk about the president's meeting with congressional leaders on Thursday. Did it accomplish anything, or did it simply demonstrate how deep the divide is over health care reform?
Well, I think it was good that they had a chance to talk about the issues. I wish it would have happened a year ago. Unfortunately, I think it was a missed opportunity for the president. It was more of a forum than it was a problem-solving session. I would have hoped that the president would have said, okay, we all agree on this issue. Let's put this issue in a bill and let's pass it. Now let's go on to the next issue. What can we agree upon on the next issue, say pre-existing conditions? Get some agreement in the room. Let's craft these one bill at a time, step by step. I believe he'd get 80 or 90 votes in the United States Senate on a lot of these issues if we could just come together and handle them step by step.
You know, Senator, a number of Washington hands who are there and were watching this throughout the 6 hours on Thursday have said that maybe strategically what the White House and the congressional Democrats are up to is to bring the Republicans in and demonstrate that there is no way that a compromise can be reached, so that the White House and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi can push through a health care bill through reconciliation majority rule. Is that what is going to happen here?
Well, that might have been their plan, and I heard the president say something like, well, if we can't come to an agreement by Easter, then we're just going to have to use the procedural rules and we'll decide it all in election come November. I hope that that is not what the Democrats plan. You know, reconciliation, this term is being thrown around. It's a process here in the United States Senate to allow for bills to pass with only a simple majority, 50+1, if they deal with tax and spending issues. This is not a bill that was meant for reconciliation. When you do spending cuts or tax cuts, that's appropriate. This is not appropriate for reconciliation.
Well, this is a huge societal issue with very large implications, and I think that the president, you know, waited or has tried for a year with good faith to try to get the Republicans to go along. He says that people, you and people in your party, are obstructionist. And what is your plan? Do the Republicans have a plan?
We do. We have plans on several of these issues. You know, Michael, we've talked about it before. I've got a health care fraud prevention bill that would save maybe $20 billion a year. The president, in his 11-page outline that he put out before the meeting at Blair House, has some of our ideas on his outline. So I went to the floor of the United States Senate yesterday and said, let's call the bill up. If we all agree on it, let's pass it. But to create some huge new program that's funded by stealing money from Medicare, health care for seniors, to the tune of $500 billion, raising taxes by $500 billion, and creating some huge new government entitlement program that we cannot afford, that's not the way to do this. Let's take it step by step.
Well, let me ask you about one particular part of this, and then we'll move on to some other issues. But I did see the part of the exchange, I think, between John McCain and the president over Medicare Advantage, where I believe you and Bill Nelson together have carved out an exception for some 800,000 elderly Floridians who get Medicare Advantage, which is a very nice deal. But it's pretty darn costly. And McCain objected, and the president sort of said, yeah, I understand, and I don't particularly like it either, seemed to be the implication. How did you read that?
Well, in terms of Medicare Advantage, it's a program that Floridians enjoy. We have more than 1 million people in it. And there is this special deal for states like Florida. I didn't do it, Michael. It was put in there by others. And what it is, it's not really, it doesn't save it forever. It's sort of a, I like to say it's a, may not be an exit, but it's an off-ramp. Over a couple years, yeah, it would be phased out in Florida too. But I think what John McCain was saying is that why are there special deals for Nebraska? Why are there special deals for Louisiana? Why can't my seniors in Arizona get the same treatment as everybody else? That's what the American people really didn't like about this process, is that it was a backroom deal with all these deals being cut. And the American people want this to be fair and in the open, and they want it to make sense.
Senator LeMieux, let me move on to the general subject of polarization and gridlock in Washington. I'm sure when you come home to Florida and you're out in the community, you hear from people who are saying, come on, can't you guys agree on things up there? Can't we get past this? What is your answer when people say that to you?
Well, I think the system here, as much as I am honored and privileged to be a senator, I feel that the system is broken.
So you would agree with Evan Bayh? I mean, Evan Bayh, senator from Indiana.
I do, and I sympathize with Senator Bayh. I do. People should. It's a shame that good people, are leaving this institution because they feel like nothing can get done. This week, I voted for the jobs bill. I was one of a few Republicans who crossed the aisle to vote for it. I voted for the Tourist Promotion Act yesterday. Only a few Republicans did that too. Look, if there are good ideas, I don't care if they're Democrat or Republican ideas, we got to come together on them. But this system here was designed to be slow, but I think it's beyond what our framers intended. And we really need to have people come to Washington who are going to be problem solvers, and in my mind, are going to get in control of this crazy spending around here, where we spend money that we don't have year after year after year, and impact our children and put a terrible burden on the future of this country.
And the president did the other day appoint a debt reduction commission and appointed former Senator Alan Simpson and Erskine Bowles, the former White House chief of staff, to look at that issue. That will get, I hope it's going to get some bipartisan support, will it?
Well, I hope so. The problem with this commission is it doesn't have any power. We had one proposed in the Senate, a bipartisan commission proposed by Senator Gregg and Senator Conrad, a Republican and a Democrat, that would have done what the president is proposing, but it would have put some teeth in it, because whatever they came back with as their recommendation, we would have only been able to vote it up or down. I voted for it, but Democrats and Republicans voted against it, and it failed. Yeah. And that's a shame. You know, I'm trying to bring ideas up here, some fresh ideas about how to control spending. I'm trying to get some traction on them. For example, if we just went back to 2007 level spending, which most Floridians would be happy to have what they had to spend in 2007. Right. And we froze the budget till 2020 at that level. We could balance the budget in 2013, and we could cut our $12 trillion debt in half by 2020. Well, and then we'd have to make some hard decisions around here and actually govern, and we could really help the future of this country.
Well, I saw a Wall Street editorial, journal editorial to that effect, and you make a very good point. Senator, let me move on to a subject which I find, and I think you find, more and more troubling, and that is what is going on in Iran. I think you would agree every day it poses more of a threat to Israel, the Middle East, and to this country. When President Ahmadinejad says that they have enriched uranium to 20% and they can make a nuclear weapon if they want to, the Obama administration still thinks it can sort of jawbone and work this out through economic sanctions. What's your opinion here? What can the United States do with Iran that it's not doing?
I think Iran is an existential threat to this country. I think it is the most dire threat that we have right now in the world to freedom and security. And I'm reminded of Winston Churchill's phrase about the Nazis before World War II, that it was a gathering storm. And I view that about Ahmadinejad and Iran. They are projecting their influence around the world. They are in Latin America. I had an opportunity last week to go to Latin America and visit Honduras and Panama and Colombia. And we know that Hezbollah and Hamas, which are the surrogate groups for Iran, are taking root in Latin America, right here in our hemisphere. We know that Venezuela is assisting Iran in obtaining uranium, or at least that's the concern.
Right.
So this is a very dire situation. The time for negotiation is over. The world needs to come together. We need to put pressure on all of the countries of the world to stop trading with Iran, stop buying their oil, stop importing goods and services to them, and we need to shut them down. I mean, Hillary Clinton, our Secretary of State, said a couple days ago that she believes the military is now in charge and that Ahmadinejad is not even running the country. This is a very dangerous situation, and we have to be focused on it.
I'm glad to hear you say so. Before we run out of time here, Senator LeMieux, let me ask you a couple of things about Florida politics. Your good friend Charlie Crist sort of got a boost this week with some revelations that Marco Rubio, his opponent for the GOP Senate nomination, that Mr. Rubio used a credit card, American Express card, issued by the Florida Republican Party to make some personal expense purchases. Do you think that Mr. Rubio showed bad judgment by buying $16,000 worth of goods and services with that card?
Well, look, if you have a Republican Party credit card, I've never had one, but if you have one, those charges need to be spent on helping Republicans get elected, on bringing more people into the Republican Party, and if they're being spent on personal items, that's a problem. People contribute to the Republican Party believing that their dollars, or the Democratic Party for that example, for that matter, believing that their dollars are going towards building the party and electing candidates. So I think there are some problems with it, and that needs closer scrutiny.
Yeah, and you know, Tom Slade, the former state GOP chairman, said when asked should all of the Republican charges on these credit cards be made public, his answer was hell yes. Would you say that let's release all of the records of these American Express corporate cards from the RPOF?
Well, I think that's a decision for the Republican Party of Florida. If they believe that they should be released and the donors to the Republican Party of Florida are putting pressure on them, then they'll make that decision. But, you know, I know Governor Crist never had a credit card. Bill McCollum never had a credit card. A lot of folks chose not to. I mean, when I was the governor's chief of staff, for example, I paid for my own cell phone. You know, we didn't bill that to the party or didn't bill it to the state. I mean, you have to realize that in any of these circumstances, it's the people's money, whether it's when you're in government or whether you're taking money from the party to do election work, it's still the people's money, and you have a fiduciary responsibility to treat that money well.
Senator LeMieux, glad to hear you paid your own phone bill. That's a good point on which to end. Wish you well, and wish you and your wife well. You're going to have your fourth child, I believe, in just a few weeks.
We are. Thank you, Michael. We got the 3 boys. We're keeping our fingers crossed for a healthy girl.
All right. Good luck. Senator, thanks very much, and always good to speak with you.
Thanks, Michael.